Alright, so here's the deal. We have got everything in the engine back together now. Heads, intake, exhaust, all that's back on the car. Oil's in it, coolant's in it, spark plugs are in it. We just gotta add fuel and put the PCM back in it. Try to fire it up, see what happens. Alright, whatever. Let's fucking crank this thing over and see what happens, I guess. Yeah, his battery's like dead. I don't even feel the injectors clicking. I mean, the only other thing I can think of is just like unplug this bulkhead and check the pins. Crank sensor is definitely plugged in. Crank sensor's plugged in, cam sensor's plugged in.
Everything, all the grounds are good? Are there any grounds down here?
We got one ground here. Scan tool fucking... like a regular ass scan tool wouldn't really...
Oh, no, like those badass ones where you can
like a Modus or something like that, like
yeah.
a nice snap-on one I could use, but like your average.
Does Ted have one?
I'm really not sure if he does or not.
Can we text
So I can check the coils for power and check everything for power.
So if it's not getting power to the coil, then where do you go from there?
I mean, it should be getting power to the coil because it's the relay's kicking on.
Yeah, for Shane's multimeter. His multimeter. Awesome, thanks man. Danny's gonna bring a 9-volt.
Is he?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so here's the deal. It's another day. Messed with this car for a bit yesterday trying to get it running. And it seemed the more I messed with it, the more shit started going wrong. So, cranking over, no problem there. We weren't getting any spark. Cam sensor, crank sensor, all that stuff's plugged in. Decided to take the harness out of the car to check the pins and the pinout on everything. The pin for power to the ignition coils was in the wrong spot, so I repinned that, checked it again, same thing, crank no start still. Checked to have power at the coils, the injectors, all that stuff. Everything was getting power, getting good ground. And then I put the harness all back in the car, and then the throttle position, the throttle body wasn't opening up anymore. So I didn't change anything with that, so started digging into that. Was having connection issues on the throttle body, and now here we are with everything back on the bench. And what I'm basically doing right now is going through, checking continuity on everything. So from the connectors to the PCM connector, like from the injector connector example to where that pin is on the PCM, checking all that stuff out. So far, injectors are all good, coils are all good, crank sensor's good, map sensor's good, cam position sensor wasn't reading right, throttle body is not reading right. I think there was one wire in the coils that was not right either. And then as I was searching through, going through, okay, I'm not getting continuity on that circuit, so I'm just checking pins in here. And then I was finding wires that were popped off and just not holding their crimps. I mean, this is a pretty cheap bulkhead connector, so I'm not really surprised. It's kind of what you get for using cheap shit. So I think what I'm gonna have to do now is basically cut this bulkhead out of here, solder it all together, pin by pin. So go like injector 1, grab that wire down here, get the wire here, solder them together, and do that for every single wire, completely solder the harness together. And that, I mean, that's I don't really have any other options at this point, so that's just what I'm gonna have to do. And then you know, kind of sucks I won't have a nice bulkhead because it made it a lot easier, but right now I just really care about getting this thing running and working. So I need to go pick up heat shrink, and then I'm probably going to spend all day rewiring. Well, not necessarily rewiring, but you know, I have to make roughly 60 solder connections on this harness, and they all have to be right. So, and on top of that, more bad news. The harnesses that I bought came in. And this is the shoulder strap they sent me, which was not the one described or the one in the picture. So that's fucking awesome too. This is exactly that, and I had to wait like 2 weeks for these to come in. Like, yeah, these would have been nice because they're the nice dog bone style, so you know, they go over the Hans device nice and easy. But my cage is already painted, and I'm not welding a tab onto my cage to fucking bolt this in. I mean, I guess, no, I can't even do a wraparound style because you can't even take this apart. It's so stupid. So I gotta send these back, or see if I can just order 2 shoulder straps that will plug into the cam lock. I got the cam lock right here. This has just been a string of bad luck, and things just haven't been going my way this last couple weeks, you know. First it was the pilot bearing issue, then it was the cylinder head leaking issue. I opened those first, so I guess next it was that issue. And then it was the cranking but no starting issue. And then it was the throttle body failure issue. In hindsight, I really wish I would have just gone standalone on this. It'd make my life so much easier because I can hook a computer up to it and diagnose everything and see what's reading and what's not. But with HP tuners, I can't look at any of that because I don't have the cable for it or the licensing or any of that stuff, so I'm kind of dead in the water with diagnosing that way. Got to do it the old-fashioned way with a voltmeter. Oh, and I broke my map sensor too. That was another thing that sent me back too. Oh, this is a cluster fuckery. But I'm gonna go pick up some heat shrink and get to work on resoldering this harness together, and then I guess I'll have to I'll probably just end up building a whole new harness or something. Maybe I'll just use, if I can make this work, I'll run the ECU on that for now, and then maybe I'll actually spend the money and buy a Haltech for it. That way it'd just be so much better to just have a Haltech on this car. And in hindsight, going to cable throttle probably wouldn't have been a bad idea either, because a lot of guys are going to cable throttle now on this stuff, and you know, less points of failure, way easier. You know, you don't have to worry about pedals dying or wires coming unplugged or anything like that. So I think I'm going to switch to cable throttle in the future. The only thing that sucks is I'll need to change that firewall out, but I'm rambling. I'm going to go pick up some heat shrink and get to work on resoldering this stuff. Alright guys, so basically here's what I'm doing. Going through, soldering the whole harness together, eliminating the bulkhead. And the way I'm doing that is I'm going to my pin in the connector. So this is pin F on the throttle body. I'm going here, then going to the wire that I pulled out of the bulkhead, making sure I got good continuity there. So I know that this goes to pin F. Perfect, just like it should. Then I'm going into this diagram here, and I pull up, alright, throttle body, pin F right there, goes to pin 63 in the PCM. Now I have the wire that I pulled out of the other side right here, so pulled that one onto that. And what was that, 63? So 2, 4, 6, 61, 2, 3, it should be this pin. So we got good continuity through that wire. I know this is the correct circuit for where it should pin on the PCM, solder it together. Basically, I'm going to go through and do that for every single wire on this harness. Yeah. So after a couple hours, we have everything, excuse me, after a couple hours we have everything resoldered. Bulkhead connectors are gone. There were quite a few pins that were not in all the way, that's for sure, that just weren't staying snapped in place. A couple wires that were just hanging out, not crimped on all the way or holding their crimps. I mean, these are some, I don't know if I have any of the connectors actually laying around here that I took off, but they're not the greatest bulkheads. They were a little bit cheaper. I mean, as you can see, I just gave the wires a little tug and they pulled right out. This de-pinning tool was practically useless, so plus I had to solder it all, so I just yanked them all out and resoldered it all. Went pin to pin on everything, and everything's all in the right spot now, and everything has good continuity through it. So I'm gonna throw this back in the car, and hopefully everything works now. And yeah, I mean, let's get it in there and see what happens. Coolant temps. Alright, well, everything is plugged back in. Harness is routed, cam crank, all that. I guess it's time to key it on, check that the throttle body works, and then crank it over and see why else it won't run now. So yeah, let's see what happens. Okay. Throttle body's turning on, that's a good sign. Let's see if the actual pedal works now. Working. Prime fuel. Well, this sucks. This really sucks. What the fuck? I don't know. I don't know what the hell just happened there. I think it's just in the tune, honestly, because it fired up. So it's probably dumping a lot of fuel or too much fuel, not enough fuel. I'm really not 100% sure. But it started. And we do have oil pressure going through there. So that's a good sign. Alright, so where are we at? It'll fire up on cold start, but shuts off immediately. Leads me to believe one of two things. The MAF isn't failed properly, so it's not correctly or actually in speed density mode like it needs to be. So maybe the ECU is looking for the MAF sensor, which it doesn't have, and then shutting off. That would make sense. Another thing is VATs might not have been shut off properly, so VATs might still be active. And when VATs is active, your phone beeps. VATs might be active, so that would shut it off, which is a possibility. Or the map sensor data is wrong or something like that. So, but it does fire, it does run. Well, it doesn't run, it fires and starts up, so that's a good sign. I think the issue's in the calibration, so we're just gonna have to figure it out from there. But this is a huge step forward. The car fired up at least. I know it's not the startup video you guys were probably hoping for, but it's a startup video that you're getting and the one that I needed. So that's going to be it for this one. So like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, follow the build along. Head on over to ShaneWhaleyRacing.com, pick up some merch, help support the channel, help support the builds. And until the next one, I'll catch you guys later.